Welcome to Oracle of Confidence. I need to tell you something that might be uncomfortable. You are at a critical threshold, and the choice you make in the next 30 days will determine your entire trajectory for the next 5 years. I don't say that lightly, and I'm not speaking to everyone equally. This message is for the person who's been contemplating something: a career change, a relationship decision, a personal commitment, a confrontation that needs to happen. Something you know you need to do, but keep postponing. You're at a crossroads. Not dramatically, but fundamentally. You've been thinking about making a move for months, maybe years, and right now you're at the moment where the cost of staying the same is finally exceeding the cost of changing. This is the threshold. This is the moment where most people either step through to a completely different life, or they retreat back into comfortable, familiar dysfunction. Leah is 34, brilliant marketing strategist, but she'd been in the same corporate job for 8 years. She hated it. Not dramatically hated it, but quietly hated it. Every morning, she'd wake up with this low-grade dread, the kind that doesn't make the news, but makes the years. She'd been contemplating leaving for 3 years. Literally 3 years of thinking about it, of researching other jobs, of updating her LinkedIn, of fantasizing about what else was possible, but she never left. Why? Because the cost of staying felt lower than the cost of leaving. Her salary was comfortable. The job was predictable. She had health insurance, stability. Even though she was miserable, the misery was familiar. But here's what Leah didn't see. Every month she stayed, she was making a choice, and that choice had momentum. Most people don't realize when they're at a threshold. They think they're just making a regular decision. Stay at the job or leave. Try the thing or don't. Have the conversation or keep quiet. But thresholds are different. At a threshold, the same choice made at a different time has completely different consequences. The difference between leaving the job at 34 and leaving the job at 39 is extraordinary. Not just in years of your life, in your sense of agency, in your confidence, in what becomes possible after. Leah didn't understand this. She thought she could always leave, that the opportunity would always be there, that the right time would eventually come. Here's the research. 74% of people who postpone major decisions at thresholds never actually make the decision. They drift into the default. They wake up 5 years later in the same situation, wondering how it happened. Let me be specific about what retreating from your threshold actually costs you. If Leah retreats now and stays at her job for 5 more years, she won't just be the same. She'll be more entrenched. More habits will form. More of her identity will fuse with the job she dislikes. Her confidence in her own judgment will decrease because she'll have ignored her own truth 5 more times. The courage it took to even consider leaving will atrophy. In 5 years, she'll be 39, and the decision will be even harder. Because there will be 5 more years of, but I've invested so much time here. 5 more years of momentum in the wrong direction. This isn't about the specific job. It's about the pattern. Every threshold you retreat from teaches your nervous system. Your own desires don't matter. Stay comfortable. Trust the system. And every retreat makes the next threshold harder. On the other hand, if Leah steps through the threshold in the next 30 days, she doesn't need to have a perfect plan. She doesn't need to know exactly what's next. She just needs to initiate the crossing. Maybe she gives notice in 1 month. Maybe she starts interviewing. Maybe she takes a sabbatical and explores. The specific path doesn't matter as much as the direction. What matters is what stepping through teaches her nervous system. Your own judgment matters. Your own truth matters. You are capable of creating different circumstances. That lesson compounds. Every threshold you cross teaches you that you have agency, and agency is the foundation of everything. Leah's threshold isn't unique to Leah. It's human. But the person who crosses gets a completely different nervous system than the person who retreats. They're literally operating from a different neurological baseline. Right now, you probably think the threshold is about the specific outcome, about whether you get the job or the relationship or achieve the goal. But actually, the real stake is deeper than that. The real stake is, do you become the person who listens to their own truth? Or do you become the person who ignores their own truth? Do you become someone who has agency, or someone who drifts with circumstance? Do you build a nervous system that trusts itself, or one that constantly doubts itself? That's the actual threshold. That's what's really at stake. Leah gave herself 90 days to make a decision, not to execute the entire transition, just to decide and initiate. She started interviewing. It felt terrifying, like she was betraying her employer, like she was being ungrateful. But 60 days in, something shifted. She got offered a job at a startup, not perfect, but different, aligned with her interests, better energy, less security, more purpose. She took it. What she didn't anticipate, the biggest change wasn't the job. It was the part of herself that woke up, the part that realized she could create change, that she wasn't trapped, that her intuition mattered. Within a year, that awakening changed everything else. Her confidence spilled into relationships. She ended an unfulfilling situation that had been quiet for years. She made other changes that had seemed impossible 6 months prior, but it all started with crossing the threshold. Here's what I want to ask you. What is your threshold right now? What have you been contemplating for months? What keeps circling back to you? That's not random. That's not just a thought. That's your nervous system telling you something is ready to change. You don't need to have the perfect answer. You don't need to have certainty. You just need to initiate the crossing in the next 30 days. As Joseph Campbell says, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Subscribe to Oracle of Confidence. In the comments, tell me, what is your threshold right now? What have you been contemplating? Name it, and then commit to one small step this week. Not the whole journey. One step, one call, one conversation, one initiation. Remember, you're not making a big leap. You're crossing a threshold, and that crossing changes everything.